Hello and welcome to Between the Lines, the sports betting podcast for DraftKings.com. I'm your host, Eric Rosenthal, and with me as always are Will Appleby.
What's up?
And Garion Thorne.
Hey, guys.
A lot to talk about. We got the NBA, NFL coming up, so it's college football, the British Open, UFC, a million things to talk about in the sports betting world. But first, I got to ask, Will, Russell Westbrook has been traded away from your Oklahoma City Thunder to the Houston Rockets.
City Thunder for now. I'm in exploratory talks with some free agent teams for my pick. So
let's get into that trade, how it affects the NBA as a whole, how it affects the Houston Rockets' chances to win the NBA championship. But just first, your thoughts on what happened with Westbrook.
Well, I mean, I knew he was going, so it's not like a huge surprise. Like once Paul George got traded, it was time to move on. Like they had to try to pull in picks. And I think they wanted to do right by Westbrook, and he always said he wanted to play with Harden. So they shoved him down to Houston and pulled back Chris Paul and some more first-round picks, and now they can keep this first-round pick charade going and end up with like 20, 30, 40, 200 first-round picks. May not have any players, but hell, they're going to have a lot of first-round picks. So I think for the Rockets, the team chemistry angle skyrockets. I mean, I think as far as like a future, as far as winning the title, I don't think much changes, but I think the chemistry will be much improved between him and Harden.
Well, they're now jumped up to the fifth favorite to win the NBA championship, fourth favorite in the West at plus 750 to win overall. Garion, do you think there's any value at plus 750 with the Rockets? You know, the five highest turnover seasons in the history of the NBA are Russell Westbrook and James Harden. Now they're on the same team together.
It's going to be great when, like First Take breaks the story in January. Like, wow, Russell Westbrook's really cut down on his turnovers this year. He's really focused in. And it's like, well, he just doesn't have the ball in his hand as much. But all right. I don't know. Look, we said on last week's show, like we specifically pinpointed that one section of the Western Conference odds or even the NBA Finals odds where, we saw Golden State at 12-1. We saw Houston at 15-1. And we even, the Jazz and the Nuggets and the Nuggets specifically because they have so many pieces still to move. The Jazz kind of made their big trade by bringing in Mike Conley. But we said one of these teams is going to make a move to get down to single-digit odds. I was thinking it would take more than a day and a half to do that, but the Rockets did exactly that. They went from 15-1, like you said, down to plus 750. So I think that's a pretty reasonable spot. Like I wouldn't say I'm itching to jump at them at plus 750, and I wouldn't say that's disrespectful either. I think those odds are fair. I think I'm still of the mind that they are a clear rung behind the Los Angeleses of the Western Conference, but obviously it was a move that improved them. And I think like Will said, even if you want to skip over just the breakdown of the on-court play and decision-making, there was just so many black clouds hovering over that team for the past 3 months. It seemed like something had to happen. That organization and that collection of players was just not going to take down an NBA title. So they did a thing they had to do and they got better. So I think it's justified where they are right now.
Yeah, you mentioned that Daryl Morey was going to trade whatever he had to make a difference, and that first trade happened. And do you think they're done? Like they still have Clint Capella, they still have Eric Gordon, they still have other pieces that clearly they tried to move. I don't know how those guys are going to feel their names in the air all the time about them getting traded.
Yeah, I mean, I think that to me, Gordon kind of needs to be on this team. Look, Harden obviously is a very competent three-point shooter, but he's not exactly a marksman. He is a volume over quality shooter, which is fine. That's the way he's kind of had to operate, especially when, everyone was injured on that team back in December. But between he and Russ, there's not a ton of great three-point shooting on that team. And I think they need someone like Eric Gordon. So I would say probably Capella would be the one of those two guys in particular who I would be less surprised if he was moved. But I don't know. Like they've given up so much draft capital. I'm just not quite sure what other move they have left. But as we know, some superstar is going to be disgruntled 2 months from now. So who really knows how that all breaks down?
Yeah, it feels like the Anthony Davis trade was years ago, and he's never even played a game on the Lakers, and so things change so
He's
don't
quickly.
already
think there's any
worn
way they move-
23 and 3, so it feels like it's been 2 years.
I don't think there's any way they move Gordon because Westbrook led the league in creating open looks for 3-pointers. The problem is he was, giving it to guys like Jeremy Grant. The Rockets need Eric Gordon. I think he's right about Capella, though. I think Capella could be on the block. Eric Gordon is, something Westbrook didn't have. Westbrook was kicking out to Andre Roberson for 3-pointers in Oklahoma City. So having Eric Gordon will be a major asset. The rest of them, I don't know. I mean, you've got to think, from a chemistry standpoint, they may make another move, especially considering I think we all believe that they're still at that third, fourth seed level, and they're not above the Los Angeleses, as Garion called them. So
it is
Los
interesting.
Angeles.
Like I think Will can talk to this. Just having watched Oklahoma kind of strip down all their assets, like it's a weird market for Clint Capella. Like he seems like he's obviously a very mobile defender. He's a rim protector. He's a very good finisher at the rim, but so much of that is a product of playing with James Harden and Chris Paul. Like I'm just not sure teams around the league look at it and go, wow, Clint Capella is like a 5-star asset in the NBA right now. Like Steven Adams' contract looks immovable because he just happens to be 7 feet tall. Like it's just a weird place for asset management when guys are playing the center position right now. So I don't even know realistically if they could get back anything with Capella that would entice them. Like it almost feels like they'd only move Capella to get off his salary and maybe do something else with that money. But I don't think they'd want to attach an asset to him at this point to get rid of him. So I almost think just with how the market for centers is kind of dissolved this summer, I don't really see anyone like actively pursuing Capella, if that makes sense.
Boston might really be the only realistic option. I don't think they're dying for him either. So
Well, half the league can't be traded now until December 15th because they were just signed in free agency, literally half the league. So I think once that happens, you're going to see a lot of chaos around December 15th. Even the Warriors who signed D'Angelo Russell, I know Bob Meyer said they weren't going to trade him, but hey, once December 15th rolls around and they're able to trade D'Angelo Russell, we might see some moves there. Gary, you mentioned one thing about 3-point marksman. Ben Simmons, 5 years, $170 million, 0 3-pointers at the point guard position. What do you think about the Sixers? They're actually my favorite bet at plus 700 to win the title. I think they come out of the East for sure. They were this close to beating Kawhi Leonard in that playoff series. One bounce, the ball goes the other way, and they beat him. And they're in the finals. Maybe they win it if those injuries still happen. So, Will, Garion, what do you think about the Sixers at plus 700? And what do you think about Ben Simmons getting $170 million?
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, I don't know if they had to give him all that money. They could have played out the season, offered him an extension then, or if he got the restricted free agency, of course, matched anything. But
well, I mean, if they didn't pay him, what was the process for? I mean, I think that's pretty much the question.
Yeah, and I think too, even though he's obviously a strange asset, he's still an asset. Like I still think people in NBA circles and within management groups look at him as maybe not a top 20 player, but like a fringe top 20 player and someone who has potential. He's obviously a unique player. Like, I don't think this contract is immovable, basically.
Right.
It's not a John Wall level albatross. Like if they have to get off this in a couple of years, they probably can. So I think you probably have to go about it as just controlling your own assets. Like Will said, this is the point of everything you did for the last almost decade. You kind of have to follow it through. So I really don't have that big an issue with this contract. Although it is, again, it's always funny to look at his 3-point numbers.
Yeah, and obviously it only takes one team to want him to make a trade. We just saw it in the NBA with Russell Westbrook. A lot of people thought that contract was untradeable, but then there was the Chris Paul move. And the Knicks, would they take Ben Simmons and offer a pick or two for him? Of course. So I think in the end it does make sense, but it kind of boxed into that corner. But hey, he gets his money. Sixers will be happy. I think they have a chance to go to the NBA Finals this season. Let's talk about the Open Championship, or the British Open as it's known. Rory McIlroy is the favorite at plus 950. He won that tournament in 2014. Brooks Koepka at plus 1150. John Rahm, Dustin Johnson, Tiger Woods is fifth at plus 2200. And then my guy, Justin Rose, at plus 2500. I was listening to Pat Mayo. I'm sure you guys do listen to the Pat Mayo Experience. If you don't, it's on DK Live and just everywhere on the internet. Go listen to Pat Mayo. I love the guy. A lot of good picks on DraftKings Daily Fantasy as well for the Open Championship. But Will, is there anybody you're looking at? I'm looking to do anything I can to fade Tiger Woods. I don't know if you saw some of his quotes that he was kind of exhausted right now and scrambling to get back. And people love betting Tiger Woods, and I know he won recently, but to me, the move is always fade Tiger, always fade the public, and especially when he said,
well, especially now that he got the major. So
yeah,
what everybody thought he couldn't get, he finally got it, and now it's kind of like, oh well, he's going to keep doing it. Well, he's not the same. He's still not the same player, even though he got it. But McIlroy's been in top 5 for the last 5 years. He's on my best bets pick. He crushes this course, as does Jordan Spieth. He's been in the top 10 in 3 of the last 4 picks. These are 2 guys I was looking at as far as picks for this weekend. Top 5 and top 10, those are the, where you can kind of find some of the value. Spieth, for somebody who's been in the top 10 3 of the last 4 years, you can get him finishing in the top 10 at plus 450. So that's quite a price. He crashed at the end of the U.S. Open, but he had 3 straight top 10 finishes right before that. So if he can, bring that Jordan Spieth and the historical Jordan Spieth from this course to the table, that's a nice price for plus 450.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me for Jordan Spieth. He's kind of been the forgotten man, struggling a little bit lately, but all those top 10 finishes, you don't have to win. In the DK Sportsbook, there's the top 5 bets, top 10 bets, and head-to-head bets, and you don't have to win.
That's much easier than winning. So
exactly, Garion. What are your thoughts, if any?
Yeah, I feel like I'm looking in a similar kind of realm as well, just at really good odds or sort of surprising odds for guys who are just big name golfers who have the ceiling to obviously take down this event if they're in good form. And I like Eric, a fan of the Pat Mayo Experience. And I know one guy Pat really likes this week is Justin Thomas at 30-1. I don't even watch or bet a ton of golf, and that number seems extremely high to me. I know he's been dealing with a wrist injury this season, but it seems like he's been playing a little bit better, at least with his irons and off the tee, the last couple events he's played. I also like that he went and played the Scottish Open last weekend, had a T10. I think he finished 9th. So in that event, so getting some experience with links golf, with the weather over in Europe. And realistically, he's someone whose game lines up really well with links golf and this course in particular. Like, one of the key statistics is strokes gained par 4. And Justin Thomas is one of the best players in the world at that particular statistic. So you'd think with his ability to not just bomb it off the tee, but also his ability to play really well with his irons. It's the putter that sometimes lets him down. So if he can just come out of here with like a half decent putting week, I think he could make a really big mark. So I think Justin Thomas, even, Patrick Cantlay is a fantastic player. I think his odds are pretty fair though, but Thomas is someone who I'm pretty excited to lay a bet down on.
Yeah, there's some interesting odds on Justin Thomas to make the top 30. He's minus 106, finishing the top 30 at all. So I think if it makes sense that if you're going to bet him to win the tournament at 30-1, say you lay $100 down at 30-1 on him to win the tournament, well, at minus 106, bet your 100 back right there. So he finishes anywhere between 2nd and 30th. You wind up breaking even. And if he somehow wins the tournament, it's an amazing time, because obviously if you think he's got any shot to win, you would assume he finishes in the top 30. Will you down with that bet?
Yeah, makes sense to me. Adam Scott's another guy who's got some good historical numbers. He's plus 300 to make the top 10 at this course. So that's another nice price. So there's definitely some value that you can find.
Yeah, there's a million bets in the DK Sportsbook, from what nationality of the golfer who wins, the age of the golfer who wins, who will make or not make the cut, just unlimited things, what bogeys there will be, how many albatrosses.
The golfer named after a cat.
So head to the DK Sportsbook, check out all those Open Championship angles, and also play a little daily fantasy. If he won the Open Championship. Pat Mayo, shout out to you. Really good information this week. Any final thoughts on the Open?
I guess you're rooting against Tiger.
Rooting against Tiger. All right, I like it.
At least you're not rooting for a tie here. You can't root for a tie in this one.
No ties. There will be a playoff, unlike my women's soccer bets that didn't come through. Yeah. All right. Let's head to the MLB. And before we get into the bets, I want to get into the juiced balls debate. I want to know if you guys think the balls are juiced. Justin Verlander says they are. Rob Manfred says no, but
it is.
Will just says flat out it is. Garion, what are your thoughts?
I mean, there was literally a study released by, I believe it was The Athletic, where they broke down that they are different. Like, I don't know if would I trust an independent party on the matter, or would I trust Rob Manfred on the matter, who is 100% biased in his interpretation of what's going on? I think they are juiced. Do I care? Not really. It's weird. I think baseball has this strange thing where it's simultaneously the most dipped in like history and prestige and lore. It's a pastime. Like that's all cool. But it's also the game that's changed the most, as much as people like to say that you can't change anything about it. And it's not just like the DH and things like that, but there's literally an era of baseball called the dead ball era. There's an era that baseball acknowledges where the ball was different anyway. Like I look, maybe it's the secrecy, and I can understand where Verlander is coming from. Like, as a pitcher, if it's costing you money and the league isn't going to fess up to this, and people are still gauging your stats, especially when we're talking about arbitration, when your stats are the basis of your salary and those stats are still being held to the regard of a non-juiced era, I can understand why you'd be upset. But as a fan, I'm fine with it. So do I hope they would come out and admit to it? Sure. Do I hate Verlander getting angry all the time? No, it's kind of fun. So
they're not gonna. They would never admit it.
No, but like, again, I'm fine with it. I don't really care. Like, does it affect your enjoyment as a baseball fan, Will?
No.
Yeah.
It's funny to see Eric Sogard with 10 home runs.
Hey.
Yeah, I saw that stat, Will. I was watching him hit. He's got more home runs this year than he has in like the past 9 years combined.
Oh, yeah. No, he had 11 home runs in his career before this season. He has 10 this season.
Yeah.
And he's been in the league for 8 years. So
it does affect my enjoyment, though, Gary, and you asked that, but in a positive way. We love seeing home runs. Chicks dig the long ball, as well as they said, 2.75 home runs per game, the highest ever. And one thing I'll let maybe Rob Manfred slide with it is he said that they haven't intentionally juiced the balls. And that actually may be true. There could be a slight variation.
Well, they juiced it by accident?
But what I'm saying is, if it was the lowest home run rate of all time, they would investigate and fix it automatically.
Yeah.
So if it was a slight accident in one direction, they're always in a positive direction. They're just going to ignore it, pretend it's not there, not investigate, not fix it. So he could be not lying in the sense that they didn't intentionally say, hey, go juice these balls, but it happened and they're just turning a blind eye.
Well, yeah, he's carefully wording everything he says because he doesn't want to admit it.
Yeah, but look, like, we don't even have to go back to the 1920s to like do the whole, the baseballs have always been different, they change year to year. Like, literally the quality of baseball between the majors and AAA and AA is so vastly different. Like, you hear pitchers talk about it all the time where, the laces on the baseball are lower in the minors and a little bit higher in the majors, and it affects spin rate. It affects how pitchers grip the baseball. Like, it's so different even on this level-to-level approach in 2019 that I don't really know how you get this. Like, if you're going to complain about it in this sense, let's just get uniform baseballs across the entirety of both Major League Baseball and the minor league systems. Like, there's already just so much difference from stadium to stadium, year to year, league to league, level to level. Like, I don't know. I'm just fine with it.
The funny thing you said is, let's just get uniform baseballs for all levels. Like, that's like some crazy thing.
Yeah.
How is it not?
I know.
Like, why would they not be the same? There's no rhyme or reason to them not being the same.
Well, I think it's cost, right? It's those balls cost more. Like I'm not 100% sure on this, but I think I remember hearing something like the scuffed baseballs they kind of just throw away after like one pitch in the dirt.
Yeah.
Like I think they send those to like the GCL. Like I guess I sort of understand it from a business perspective, but this gets into the entire like, hey, maybe minor leaguers should have a livable wage when they weren't first or second round draft picks. Like there's a lot of problems baseball has. I don't think slightly juiced baseballs are one of them currently.
Maybe they'll start paying the minor leaguers in scuffed baseballs from the pro leagues at this point.
Yeah.
Instead,
go sell these juiced baseballs for $12 a ball as a side hustle.
Remember to follow us on Twitter at BetweenLinesDK. You can follow all of us personally as well at Garion Thorne for Garion, at not SC Will for Will, and at Eric Sports for myself. And then leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And hopefully you're watching or listening on DK Live or on YouTube if you're looking at us right now. I want to talk some UFC Fight Night about this Saturday. Look, it's headlined by Rafael dos Anjos versus Leon Edwards. But first I want to talk about Greg Hardy. That Greg Hardy is fighting in the UFC this Saturday. And he's 4-1. His only loss was a disqualification, but he's getting his toughest matchup yet. To pull up the odds, Greg Hardy is minus 109 versus Juan Adams is minus 122. And I don't know anything about Juan Adams. All I know is I want Greg Hardy to go down, and I want him to go down hard. So just throwing that out there. If you're going to watch the UFC this Saturday,
I think people hope like that Adams busts out like a steel chair or something, hits him over the head, old school WWF style, and just takes Hardy out completely. That's what the internet will be rooting for.
I would love to see that, but I did talk to somebody close to the UFC, and they gave me a little info on the main matchup. Rafael dos Anjos has 2 straight losses before a submission win last week. Leon Edwards is quickly moving up the ranks. He's had 6 wins in a row, and they're fighting at 175 pounds. It's close to a pick. Dos Anjos is plus 105. Leon Edwards minus 134. And I think what I've been told is really the smart money is all on Leon Edwards. Like I said, he's been coming up quickly, so people don't maybe believe in him as much. People think he's a little overhyped, but the real UFC experts think that this guy's got a bright future. He's going to keep moving up the ranks, and I like minus 134 for him. So, look, I'm not the biggest UFC expert in the world, but people I talk to like that. I'm going to watch because I want to see Greg Hardy hopefully go down. Maybe in the style Will says, a chair. Throw it out there. I'd love to see it, but those are my only thoughts. Garion, you got anything about UFC?
No, I was just going to say, I also not the biggest UFC guy. I don't have any inside information, but the inside information you got last time really worked out. John Jones was even that fight was super close. I don't watch a ton of UFC, but even I was going in the 5th round like, he might lose this. So I'm ready to just ride with Eric's insider knowledge until it doesn't work out, because it certainly looked pretty good last time.
Works for me too.
The Masvidal fight worked out. Nunez was dominant, and Thiago Santos, he was right there the whole way. And I don't know if you guys heard this, but he tore his ACL, MCL, things like that in the first round. And he just battled through it for 5 rounds against John Jones. That's crazy. And almost pulled it off. So same person I talked to last time, I'm going to trust him again this time. Take Leon Edwards minus 134 and just trust the process, as has already been mentioned in this podcast so far. Let's get to what's finally almost here. August 1st will be the first preseason game, the NFL. I am so excited football to be back. What was that, Will?
I said finally.
Finally. Oh my gosh, I don't know how much longer I could go with no football. Gary, I know you had some strong thoughts on some NFL win totals and awards and all that. So why don't you get right into it?
Yeah, well, we'll start with some common ground because I feel like Will's going to back me up on this, but I really like the Bears to go over their win total. It's 9.5 on the DK Sportsbook. They're plus 13 to go over that number. I know some people think there's some regression in line for the Bears, especially with the way they sort of ended last season.
We call those people stupid people.
We call those people Packers fans.
Exactly.
Right here. The Brett Favre signed jersey right above my head.
But you look at some of their advanced statistics from last season. They led the league in Pythagorean wins. They also led the league in defensive DVOA, which, it's hard to replicate that. We saw that with Jacksonville from 2017 to 2018, but I don't think we're in line for a massive drop-off from the Bears. And then you also look Football Outsiders has a great stat called hidden points, and it's essentially things that are sort of outside a team's control that go against them. And for the Bears, this really came down to opponent made field goals, opponent kickoff distance, opponent punt distance. They were just super unlucky with other teams' special teams. They actually had the fewest hidden points of any team in the NFL. So that really speaks to normalization and regression to the mean. And then you look at their own special teams. Like, it was so bad, it can really only get better. So I think when you add all those things together, I'm pretty confident they get to 10 wins.
Wouldn't it make more sense, though, with the Bears to wait until they lose their opening night game to the Packers on Thursday night, start 0-1, and then
we're
you
going
can
to have to bet something serious on that game because you're going to be very disappointed if that's what
is that game in Green Bay or Chicago?
No, it's here in Chicago.
I was going to say, if it was in Green Bay, I wouldn't actually hate waiting on that and then just betting them at probably like plus 275 to win the division. It's not a terrible way to go either, but that's something else. The Bears they're the favorite in the North, but because the North is so top heavy, they're plus 175 as the favorite. If you think they're going to win 10 games is usually enough in the NFC.
9.5 is very low. 9.5 is very low. Like, I mean, I would be extremely disappointed if the team didn't win 10 games.
And it's plus money. Like, that's kind of the surprising thing, that it's plus money. I know, like, I'm not sure which book it was, but I know the money is pouring in on the Bears in both amount of bets and amount of money on the bets for them to win the Super Bowl. And we are, team fade the public sometimes. So that can be a little scary, but I still think they're going to get to 10 wins.
I'll give you one stat that'll settle it right here. The Bears were the only team in the NFL to have a second half lead in all 16 games last year. The only one.
Pretty good.
That is a pretty incredible stat. It actually reminds me, in 2011, when the Packers went, I think, 10-6, for real, this reminds me of that. They never trailed by more than 8 points the entire season.
Bears didn't lose by more than 7 last year. So.
Yeah, and stats like that I like a lot because the Packers went 10-6. They lost a lot of close games, but literally no point were they ever down by more than 8 on any play the whole year. And then they wound up winning the Super Bowl. People didn't believe in them enough because they were missing out on, Gary mentioned, hidden points, Will mentioning that they had a lead in the second half of every game. I'm a Packers fan. I'm never going to go bet on the Bears over. It's never going to happen. Even if it's almost free money, I'm still not going to do it. I don't want to earn money betting on the Bears, but I think there is, I guess, a little value in that. But, Will, we're going to have some fun with that Week 1 Thursday night opening game on this podcast and really get into some friendly wagers on Packers versus Bears.
It's not going to be that friendly.
Question is, are you going to give me my plus 3.5 points, or are you going to make me take the Packers straight up?
I would probably give you the points, frankly.
I'll take the points. I got the best quarterback in the history of football. Rated only 90 on Madden. Did you guys see the Madden numbers come out?
I've seen a couple of – I saw, like, Club 99. It's weird because the 2K numbers are coming out too, so it's all kind of, like, cross-pollinating in my brain. But, yeah, I know there's no Dolphin player better than 84. So, if you guys – who do you think the Dolphin at 84 is, guys?
Ooh, that's a good question. We know it's not Ryan Fitzpatrick.
It's not
Ryan Fitzpatrick's at 98. What are you talking about?
He's got 99 post-game clothing, though, which is a category they added just for Ryan Fitzpatrick. Kenny Stills, apparently, is the Dolphins' best player,
wow.
Which says a whole lot about the Dolphins. Which actually, I'm not as confident in betting the Dolphins under as I am in betting the Bears over. But someone has to be bad. Like, that's just how this works. We never go through a season where there's the worst team in the NFL is 5-11. It just doesn't.
And it's the AFC East. The AFC East is always bad for the Patriots. It's just how it goes.
Yeah. But the Dolphins over-under is 5. I don't hate their under, but the under I'm really looking at in the AFC is the Cincinnati Bengals. I just like every other team in the AFC North. I like them a lot. Like I like the Ravens to also go over their win total. Theirs is 8.5. It's plus 115 to take the over on that number. And they're a squad that, again, if you go back to Pythagorean wins from last season, they were actually the unluckiest team in the AFC by that metric. And they got much better in that metric when Lamar Jackson was their starting quarterback in comparison to Joe Flacco. They had the third best defense by DVOA. And they always just have the best special teams. And I think that's something that gets overlooked so often when we talk about win totals. It's easy to focus on offense. It's easy to focus on defense. Their special teams consistently is a top 5 unit in the NFL. And that will get you a game or two when it's all said and done. And that stuff is super important. So I look at someone like the Ravens. I look at the Browns, who maybe they're a little overhyped, but I think they're going to be quite good. And I think the Steelers are still going to be a good team. They're still going to win 9 or 10 games. That there's just not enough wins to go around in this division. And I think the Bengals, they're at 5.5. The under is plus 120, which I think is some nice vig to go under this number. You just look at what's happened the last month. Like, they already had such a bad offensive line that they couldn't keep anyone on that offense healthy. They lose Jonah Williams, their first-round pick out of Alabama for the season. And then Bowling just retired this week. They've got no offensive linemen on the left side of their line, which some would say is the more important side of the line. So I just think this team is bad. They've managed to win 6 games the last 2 seasons, but I think it could all just blow up in their face this season. So I do like that under quite a bit.
Not even just blow up in their face. I think tanking might start to happen. They need a quarterback of the future.
They'll end up benching Dalton, halfway through the season.
Yeah. The little hesitancy I have on the under on the Dolphins is before they got Josh Rosen, I loved it because they needed to tank to get their quarterback of the future. There's a chance Josh Rosen. I loved him at UCLA. Loved him in the draft. Obviously, I'm a little down on him now versus where I was, but I still think he can be the quarterback of the future. And if he is, they're not going to tank to get a quarterback. But the Bengals. And
you know what happens with Fitzpatrick on a team? You know, he always ends up starting somehow. So
he'll win 3 of his first 5 starts of the season. Like, that's the most Ryan Fitzpatrick thing to possibly happen. And like Will said, it's always kind of hard to bet an AFC East team to go significantly under their number unless they're like Buffalo Bills bad from a couple seasons back. But just because you get to play the Bills twice and the Jets twice, I'm not saying those are easy games, but they're just not. Their schedule is never going to be one of the hardest in football because they get 4 of those games every single year. Although, that being said, I do like the Jets to go over their number. They're 7.5. Their over is a little less enticing than the Bears or the Ravens, or the under is for the Bengals. It's minus 110. But you look at their schedule for this season and sort of in the inverse way of Miami, they get 2 games against Buffalo. They get 2 games against the Dolphins. Warren Sharp runs a fantastic football analytics site, Sharp Football Stats. And by his schedule matrix, the Jets are the only team in the NFL who gets to play 5 bottom 5 opponents this season and 8 bottom 10 opponents this season. So it's the Dolphins twice, the Bills twice, the Giants, the Redskins, the Raiders, and the Bengals. So it really just seems like if the Jets just take care of business, beat the teams they're supposed to, and lose literally every other game, they'll still hit this over. So, I'm not
asking the Jets to take care of business.
I know.
That's the dangerous part.
It sounded bad coming out of my mouth, but I think you bake in a little bit of second season success with Sam Darnold. I like.
They'll milk Le'Veon Bell too. So
Le'Veon Bell. They retooled the offensive line. Their defense was.
They'll run. They'll try to dominate the time of possession with him, and they'll steal some wins. So,
I think that's a relatively good over to invest in too.
Yeah, a lot of it is who you play, and shout out. I love Warren Sharp as well. He's got a lot of great stats, and that's one of them. And the schedules aren't all the same. You play different teams. You play different quality of teams It's kind of like in college football too. If you have to play against Alabama,
But there's no such thing as a last place schedule anymore. Let's get rid of that myth. There's no such thing as a last place schedule.
Although
every
I will
team
say,
every team in the division plays 14 of the same games.
Yeah.
There's only 2 games that are different.
It's interesting though, because I was kind of looking for some sort of inconsistency to hop on because of that fact, and the biggest variance I found was by Warren's metrics. The Texans have the hardest strength of schedule of any team in football this season. The Colts have the 9th easiest. Part of that is the Colts don't have to play the Colts twice, obviously. But it's also with how, again, we go back to the AFC East and just the wonder of horrors that it is. Because the Colts finished second in the division, they get to play the second place AFC East team from last season, which was the Dolphins somehow.
Oh, okay.
So they get the Dolphins. The Texans have to play the Patriots. And then even, you look at the other non-division game, they get to play the Steelers where the Texans have to play the Ravens. I think I like the Ravens more than I like the Steelers this season. So those are only 2 games, obviously, but it was a massive difference in how the schedule was put together from a strength of schedule.
That could swing the division, those 2 games right there.
Yeah. And I look, it's the Colts are pretty overwhelming favorites in the South. They're plus 100. The Texans are plus 275. But I think I still really like the Colts at that number to take down the South at even money.
Yeah, I'm not as worried about the Ravens versus the Steelers in a game, but Dolphins versus Patriots, that's from giant favorite against the Dolphins. You should definitely win that game. If you're going to win the division, you are going to win that game. Versus you play the Patriots, you're probably going to lose no matter who you are on average. They are the Patriots. Bill Belichick and Tom Brady for a reason. Most dominant team in the league year after year after year. It doesn't matter who goes down or what changes happen. Sure, we're going to see Josh Gordon back at some point. I don't know. Have you guys seen those Tom Brady posts with Josh Gordon working out?
Yeah. I don't know, man. I'm always a sucker for Josh Gordon. I'll get pulled back in for a 7th straight season in fantasy this year. I already know I will.
Me, it's literally not even a joke. I think it is like 7 straight years I've drafted Josh Gordon onto my fantasy team.
That's his suspension streak too, isn't it?
Pretty much.
Also the suspension streak, but you'd think he's hanging out with Tom Brady. He's maybe taking those. Maybe he read the TB12 diet book, and
he's all plyometrically sound now. Is what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. What's Brady's trainer's name again?
Oh, it's Guerrero something. Is it Alex Guerrero?
Yeah,
Alex Guerrero. Maybe he's gonna get him
right.
Straight and narrow. Figure it all out. Do with your Pilates.
Hey, look, man. Josh Gordon was like the #1 used car dealer in all of Cleveland for one summer. So let's cool with the straight and narrow.
Can you imagine going to a car dealership and Josh Gordon walks out to sell you the car?
Be amazing.
I probably wouldn't buy it. I'm going to be honest here. I'd be a little concerned.
No.
Okay, I'll retract that statement. Yeah, he's going to be on my fantasy football team again. So
Eric's going to have to put out his apology video next week for not wanting to buy Josh Gordon's used car.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Josh. Will, what else do you like in the NFL where you're not super biased with your Bears on the over?
Well, I mean, it's the Bears. Like, for me, I mean, it's just 9.5 is just too low. Like, look, like, I mean, I understand. Like, it makes a lot of sense. It's set up, it's a one and done team. They hadn't been good, for the previous 5 or 6 years. I could see, from an outsider standpoint, like, yeah, they're going to fall off. Maybe that was a fluke. But if you look closer, like, look, the team held a lead in every game, all 16 games in the second half, only team to do it. Returned 21 and 22 starters. I mean, you lost the nickelback too, so it could be 20 to 22, depending on how you look at it. But second year in the offense, it's the Andy Reid offense. Everybody takes the big jump in the second year. Say what you will about Trubisky, but I mean, he still threw, 23 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, threw for, what would have been close to 4,000 yards if he played all 16 games. So the loss of Fangio will hurt, but I think Chuck Pagano's more aggressive scheme is actually going to, improve the defense where it needs to be. And frankly, I expect the team to contend for Super Bowl, as a fan. Like, it's all set up. You can enjoy third place with the Packers because there's no way the Bears don't win 10 games.
All right, we'll get off the Packers-Bears debate and get to Offensive Rookie of the Year Kyler Murray is the favorite at plus 200. Dwayne Haskins coming in at plus 600. And there's odds in the DK Sportsbook for basically every award you could think of, from Offensive Rookie of the Year to the Comeback Player of the Year award. I know, Garion, you had a thought about that.
I have a take on the Comeback Player of the Year award.
Say that again?
I've got a take on Comeback Player of the Year.
All right, well, let's get to that. We'll get back to Kyler Murray and Offensive Rookie. Nonsense like that. Let's stick to a Comeback Player of the Year. What do you got?
It's not that big a take because he's the.
Is it Josh Gordon?
No, it's not. It should have been Josh Gordon.
Josh Gordon, though.
But I just think there's a ton of value at Garoppolo at plus 350, especially when you look at the other. I won't say he's the co-favorite because his odds are worse, but they're pretty close. Le'Veon Bell is plus 400. I just think there's going to be so many people voting on this award, regardless of how good the Jets are this season, regardless of how good Le'Veon Bell is this season. We're going to say you can't win Comeback Player of the Year for a season you willingly sat out.
Yeah.
And look, maybe that's a semantics thing, but to anyone who doesn't think semantics matter when it comes to these awards, consider how often we debate what valuable means in most valuable player. Like, people really stress about this stuff. And I also think there's a case to be made that, look, San Francisco has been maybe the unluckiest team in football the last 2 seasons, ever since Shanahan took over. In terms of man games lost to injury, I believe they are number 1 in football. And yet they've still been able to put together a pretty decent offense, or at least a league average offense, with like bits of string that Shanahan finds around the team complex. I just think they have a very good shot to win 8 or 9 games this season, maybe sneak into the playoffs. And if that happens and Garoppolo plays 16 games, there's no way this award doesn't go to Jimmy G. So I think plus 350 are really good odds that I'd like to jump on now, because I just don't think Le'Veon Bell is winning this award.
I actually completely agree with you. I got a friend who's a 49ers fan. We were talking about all the injuries that they've had and the potential they have this season. Obviously, Bosa, they basically got the number 1 pick, in my opinion, for this season. Kyler Murray's not going to be that useful of a guy in his rookie year. Obviously, he could be a good player. Who knows? But Nick Bosa, I think, will be the most valuable addition from the draft this season. And Jimmy G comes back. We're watching C.J. Beathard throw touchdowns against the Raiders last year to wide receivers you never heard of. And they got George Kittle at tight end, who's maybe the best in the league. I know Travis Kelce fans will get mad at me for that one, and maybe he'll even get mad and do some crazy celebration. But I love Jimmy G in general, and I just love him for Comeback Player of the Year. I think that's completely spot on, and I'm sold. Let's get in on that bet together. But one other guy I want, call out to the DraftKings Sportsbook, add Josh Gordon. Put him at like 200 to 1 odds for us, and you're going to see a big wager from the BTL.
Earl Thomas at plus 1,200 is not a bad price, especially if the Ravens defense is really good, and the way he went out last year, he comes back at full strength Earl Thomas, plus 1,200 is a really good price for him.
It's always tough to like figure out how writers and the people who vote on these awards weigh like defensive statistics versus quarterback statistics. Like if Jimmy G throws 30 touchdowns and for 4,000 yards.
Yeah, I think they could probably give it to Carson Wentz before they give it to.
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm 100% with you. Like if the Ravens come out and have like the number 1 defense by DVOA and a bunch of advanced statistics love them, like I'm willing to credit a very good Earl Thomas season for that. But I just don't know how many people are going to want to dig through some of those numbers when it's just like, oh, Jimmy was good and he threw the ball a lot with his arm, so he gets the award.
That's what fantasy football has done to football talk.
Yeah, it definitely has altered how we talk about and look at football. Playing daily fantasy too on the DK Sportsbook. So Kyler Murray again, plus 200 to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Haskins at plus 600. Daniel Jones at plus 2 million. What do you think? No,
even that's probably too low, frankly.
Madden had Daniel Jones rated lower than a quarterback who went undrafted.
I saw that.
Brutal.
I did see that.
That's pretty brutal. Haskins for plus 600 is not bad, though.
Are we in like Christian Hackenberg watch with Daniel Jones? Like, is he going to hit a sideline reporter with his first throw of training camp?
I'm not a Daniel Jones truther, but I don't think he's as bad as everybody says. He has 20 to 1 to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. I'm not going to throw my money away on that, though.
I guess the hard part is like, Haskins and Jones don't necessarily have like the starter's job locked up, where you just know if healthy Murray's going to play 16 games. I guess Josh Jacobs is kind of interesting. Like, I don't know if they're going to run.
You mean the guy they traded Khalil Mack for?
Yeah, basically. Like, look, they're probably going to have a little bit of a running back by committee with Jalen Richard getting a lot of the third down work, getting a lot of work in the passing game. But I don't know. There's a scenario where Jacobs gets, 16 to 18 rushes per game, racks up 1,100, 1,200 yards. Like, it's not insane, but even in that scenario, I think you'd need Murray to have like a Rosen-esque season to not take this award home.
Yeah, and the way he can run around, he's going to have exciting highlight plays. And you mentioned it before on the semantics, but also just how writers and how people vote.
Well, yeah, the writers are dying to give it to Murray. Yeah, I mean, it's like he's like the Mike Trout of NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year, basically, from that standpoint.
Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of bias towards him. He's going to have exciting highlight plays, even if he has some mistakes. And that team should be better this year. They're going to have an exciting offense. So I'm on board with Kyler Murray. Anybody else on any of the other awards that you're looking at? There's everything from Defensive Rookie of the Year.
David Montgomery at plus 1,600, not to be a total, Bears guy, but I'm going to be, because he's a much better fit for Nagy's offense. And if they really, utilize him, Jordan Howard really couldn't do much of anything last year. And if they can utilize David Montgomery, plus 1,600 is a great price if Kyler Murray, for whatever reason, doesn't look like he's going to win it.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Defensive Rookie of the Year, what do you think about Nick Bosa at plus 700?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like, I'm with you. If we just go by, I guess, raw skill, he was supposed to be the number one pick in the draft. So that's a lot of value at plus 700. And it's also not as if he doesn't play a position that's conducive to racking up like eye-popping stats. Like, this isn't going to be a situation where it's like, oh, he had 55 assisted tackles. It's like, no, if he wins this award, it's because he got 12 sacks. And that's just something easy to digest. So I think 7-1 is pretty good odds.
Exactly. A few forced fumbles, maybe an interception return for a touchdown, and then he gets that award. I think plus 700 is just too high for the number one pick in the draft, number one defensive player taken in the draft. Had all the hype. He's been preparing for the NFL for a while. His brother, obviously, and dad know how to prepare him for a rookie season in the NFL. I don't think he's going to hit like a rookie wall some of these guys get into. So I really like plus 700 for Nick Bosa, and Montez Sweat's up there. I don't like that at all. Plus 1,600 at Oliver, plus 1,200. There's a million guys out there, but Darnell Savage, 28-1. I'll go with Nick Bosa, 7-1. And if it loses, I'll live with it because I like those odds. Last one I want to talk about is MVP before we get to our best bets. Also, real quick, Freddie Kitchens, plus 900 for Coach of the Year. I think that makes a lot of sense.
That's enticing.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. People are going to love to want to vote for him. But MVP, odds are Mahomes is the favorite, Brady second, which I just don't believe in at all. I think he's an old guy now. I know he's posting IG videos of him running 4.9.
That could be like the Lifetime Achievement Award, though, right? Like, if the Patriots have like a 13-win season and Brady still throws for like 30 touchdowns and 4,500 yards without Gronk, and maybe it's his last season, who knows? Like, I could see them making that a lifetime achievement. I don't think it's going to happen, but I guess I can see the path as to why he's up there.
I don't see it at all. I just think even if he has those numbers, somebody is always going to explode on the scene, whoever it might be. Mahomes last year, we couldn't have predicted that he was going to do what he was going to do. There's always going to be somebody who has absurd numbers. And I don't think Tom Brady might have good numbers, real good numbers, but I don't think at this age with that offense, he's going to have the best numbers in the league.
Mahomes is going to have to fall off a serious cliff for it to not be Mahomes.
Yeah. What do you think about Mahomes at plus 500? Are we going to look back at the end of the season and go like, how the hell in one more year?
Well, it's all based around Tyreek Hill. I mean, because everybody thinks Tyreek Hill is going to be suspended, but now that, a lot of the facts have come out, that they chopped out a lot of the video and didn't show the exculpatory evidence in the video. Tyreek Hill's going to play, and if Tyreek Hill plays, Mahomes is going to crush again. So plus 500 is like
even if he does get suspended 4 games, you got
seems like 4
of the season with him. So, yeah, are we going to look back and go like, what the hell were we thinking? And why didn't we all just jump on Mahomes plus 500? He was obviously the best player last year and another year of experience.
It's possible. Like, again, I'll never doubt Andy Reid's ability to put up crazy offensive numbers during the regular season. It's just something that's happened so often to this point. It'd be stupid to think it's not going to happen. That being said, I've taken a lot of favorites. I like Luck a lot. I think we've talked about this before, but
that's a narrative one. There's a narrative potential there with Luck for sure.
Yeah, it's the second year coming off the injury. I think the second half of last season was just so phenomenal. His numbers were incredible. Their offensive line was fantastic, which is such a huge part of quarterback play, obviously. And he's never, like, even from a fantasy perspective, like you go back to 2016 when he was QB4 in fantasy, which is, not real life, but it's a pretty good precursor to like MVP statistics and the level you have to be at to win that award. He did that with a sack rate of 7%, which was among the highest in all of football. Last season, that sack rate was 2.7%. Like, the things they did to shore up that offensive line and protect him were phenomenal. He gets Jack Doyle back. They add Devin Funchess, who's like another red zone target for him. They also, like, there's some sneaky little things too. Like, they run the highest paced offense in the NFL, and they're a team that consistently ranks high in plays per game, which, again, maybe 5 extra plays per game doesn't seem like a whole lot, but by the end of the season, that's like an additional 70, 75 passes Luck gets to throw, and he can just dominate the other quarterbacks in terms of the raw numbers. Like, I don't want to say it's a lock he throws for 5,000 yards, but it sure seems like that's going to happen. So I think if you're not going to go with Mahomes, Luck is the guy I'd like to go with.
Yeah, I like Luck a lot. 2 other guys I want to mention are Aaron Rodgers at plus 1,100. I think with the new offense, Mike McCarthy
can't win MVP in third place.
Maybe not, but at plus 1,100, the guy's been, the best quarterback in the league many times, many seasons, and I don't think anybody would be shocked even on this podcast. Will, you'd be shocked if Aaron Rodgers?
Yes. They're not gonna get. They have to win the division. They're not gonna win the division. So,
Gary, would you be shocked if Aaron Rodgers won the MVP award?
No, like, again, I like the Bears a lot, so I guess it's not something that's necessarily on my radar. But we talk about correlation with MVP awards all the time. Like, if the Packers win the division, it's because Aaron Rodgers did something. It's not because someone stepped up on that team. So I can get behind it in that sense, but
he was not the same Rodgers last year.
Like, I wouldn't ever put money on Rodgers when I could just put that money on Luck. You know what I mean?
Let me give you one more guy that I think has no hype at all. We forget how dominant he was a few years ago and just how dominant his numbers were. Matt Ryan. He is plus 2,200 to win MVP. His offensive line is 5 first-round picks. All 5 of the guys. First time in the history of the NFL. There's been 5 first-round picks on an offensive line. We saw how good the Cowboys' offensive line has been for years, how that's helped their offense, made Dak Prescott look like a good quarterback when I think he's definitely below average. You got Julio Jones, too, on that offense, a complete stud wide receiver. Matt Ryan has been dominant before. He gets all those home games in the Dome, and then he gets road games, playing at the Saints where there's just going to be a million points there. Gets to play the Bucs. There's going to be a million points there. Throwing the ball around the field. I think there's a very, very likely chance that Matt Ryan's odds improve after a few weeks, and you're going to see him in the 10-1, 5-1 range. I don't know if he's going to win the award, but I think betting on Matt Ryan now at 22-1 makes just a ton of sense. Will, you're shaking your head no. You don't like Matty Ice.
Because the Falcons aren't going to win the division. It's the same scenario. You can't win MVP if you don't win the division. I think the candidate from that division is Drew Brees. It's not Ryan. So
yeah. Things happen. There's injuries. You never know who's going to go down.
Right. No, but if you just look at it from a pure going into the season, not trying to predict injuries or anything standpoint, it's going to be the Saints that win that division again. And if it's going to be the Saints, it's going to be Drew Brees as the MVP candidate. So for me, it's any of the top 4. Those are the most likely. Mahomes, Brady, Luck, and Brees, I feel like are the clear favorites. I think there's dark horses. I will say, I'll be the total homer and say Trubisky at 50-1 plus 5,000. The team goes 12-4, 13-3, and he's, he takes the next step that, all these Andy Reid quarterbacks have taken, and, in the second year of the offense, in his fourth year of starting as a quarterback ever. Guys like Baker Mayfield started 4 years in college. This is his fourth year period. So, I mean, he's definitely got room to grow still, which is crazy for a guy who threw 6 touchdown passes. But I think everybody below the top 4 is a clear, notch or 2 down below. I think it's going to be one of the top 4.
I could agree with that. I think the only dark horse guy I like, and I don't even know if it would count as a dark horse, he's 25-1, or at least he was the last time I checked. Goff is kind of interesting just in the sense that it seems like the Rams, they lost the Super Bowl, and all of a sudden, everyone is kind of just off the Rams. They didn't have this incredible season last year. Sean McVay is still not a very good coach. I know he's the punchline to a bunch of jokes, but that's really more about the NFL trying to find the next Sean McVay. The Rams already have Sean McVay. They're not looking.
Great point.
And I think that they're a team that could easily win their division again. They're a team that could easily, go through the playoffs in the NFC once again. And with the way it seems like they're going to be easing back on Todd Gurley, that only means more possible production for a guy like Goff, who gets Cooper Kupp back, who still has his top 2 receivers from last season in Cooks and in Woods. There's still weapons on this squad. And maybe Jared Everett has a breakout season at the tight end position. There's a lot that could happen here. I just think that a quarterback who literally just started the Super Bowl is 25-1, and that seems a little long for me.
Yeah, I think if he faced anybody in the world but Bill Belichick, we might be talking about Goff as, an MVP candidate. Maybe he wins the Super Bowl, wins Super Bowl MVP if he's playing the Saints or something. And
I still don't understand what's happened to Todd Gurley. It's the most bizarre situation.
I mean, wasn't the story that he came into the NFL with degenerative knees, and they knew this was going to happen? He was almost the Brandon Roy of running backs.
Yeah. So someone told me to heavily bet on something about CJ Anderson carries and Todd Gurley, whole thing in the Super Bowl. I had heard turned out to be true. And it looks like, I'm staying away from Todd Gurley in all daily fantasy on DraftKings and all fantasy football in general. Stay away from Todd Gurley. Yell at me later if I'm wrong, but I think that there's a Brandon Roy, not as much as Brandon Roy situation, but it's not good for Todd Gurley. I think they're going to ease off of him, especially if they are doing well. They got to just realize, look, we don't need him for a fourth quarter with a 17-point lead in week 3. We need this guy in the playoffs. We need him in a Super Bowl if we get back. So I think they're going to be very, very careful with Todd Gurley, and he can maybe still be that same great player in limited moments, but he's not going to be the bell cow back that we've seen him be. Okay, so let's get to the best bets segment. And just so you guys know, the odds and lines are subject to change. See website for actual odds. And if you or someone has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, Garion, best bet segment. I know you got some baseball stuff you want to get into, so let's hear it. What do you like?
Yeah, just so happy to have actual real baseball back to bet on. It was
the home run derby. Your
week with the All-Star game. So my biggest bet of the night is the Minnesota Twins minus 157 on the money line. They're, already when you're betting on the Twins, you're betting on a very, very good offense, but they are so good against left-handed pitching. And Steven Matz is their opposition tonight. The Twins rank first in baseball in isolated power, weighted on base percentage, and WRC plus against left-handed pitching this season. They're also batting .296 against them, which is the highest batting average in baseball. They just crush left-handed pitching. They're 7-2 in their last 9 games against a left-handed starter. They're also 6-1 in their last 7 games where Michael Pineda is starting. He's been a lot better as of late. So I was expecting, especially with them at home tonight, I was expecting that number to be minus 200. To see it at minus 157, I like it a lot. So I'm going to put $200 on that. I'm going to put $150 on Brandon Belt to go over 1.5 base hits tonight at plus 139. Obviously, you'd like to just bet the over on this game or, the team totals or something like that, but they are so juiced up in this matchup that I like finding a little bit of value here. Brandon Belt's batting leadoff for the Giants on the road in Colorado. He's 100% going to get 5 plate appearances in this game. And on the road so far this season, he's batting .295 with a .398 weighted on base percentage against right-handed pitching. This is the exact set of parameters you want Brandon Belt in, even if the road parking question isn't Coors Field, which it is. So against Peter Lambert, who has been crushed by left-handed batters all season long, I think Belt gets over that number at plus 139. Then Kansas City as a home dog, plus 117. I'll put $100 on that against the White Sox. And it kind of all comes back to Glenn Sparkman, of all people. The last 33 and a third innings he's pitched at Kauffman Stadium, he has a 1.62 ERA. He has been amazing at home since the start of May for the Royals. So I like them against Dylan Cease, who allowed 3 earned runs, walked 4 batters against the Tigers in his first major league start. He's not ready to be at the major league level. Sparkman's not much of a pitcher, but he's really good at home. And in that sense, $50 on him to go over 2.5 strikeouts at minus 143. He doesn't do it a lot. 3 is usually where he maxes out, but I just think he's going to last 5 or 6 innings in this game against a Chicago team that's top 5 in baseball the last 30 days in strikeout rate. So I think he gets 3 or 4 and gets over that number. But yeah, the Royals. Betting on the Royals. Feel real good. The Royals and the Jets. It's a real good show for me.
Royals and the Jets. I love it. A little contrarian, but it makes sense. All those bets made a lot of sense. And I love the Twins offense, especially too, that you mentioned. Will, what are your best bets?
First, I have to mention that I won last week. That neither of these two want to bring that up because it was
I did not want to bring that up at all, Will. I wanted to keep that quiet because I struggled.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm starting. I'm riding the Rory McIlroy train at the Open. He's got the best historical numbers. We talked about this. He's dominated. He's been in top 5 4 of the last 5 years. So I'm putting 200 of my dollars on Mr. McIlroy to finish in the top 5 at plus 225. Another guy with good historical numbers there is Jordan Spieth. I'm putting 100 of that on him to finish in the top 10, where he hasn't been quite as good as McIlroy, but he's been in the top 10 3 of the last 4 years. And he did flame out at the end of the U.S. Open, but right before that, he had 3 straight top 10 finishes. So I feel like he can get back to that for plus 450. That's quite a price. So I will take that. I'm riding the Giants train a little bit with Garion in a sense that I'm taking the only man to drive in a run in both games yesterday. And because he homered in both games, it was Brandon Crawford. So I'm putting another $100 on him to do it again. He is a left-handed batter against Mr. Lambert. So for plus 475, I'll take that. And then I've got a parlay of the Dodgers, Indians, and Red Sox. The Dodgers have Buehler going, and the Indians and Red Sox, are heavy favorites, and they've been crushing the ball. So for plus 235, I like that. I'll put my last 100 on those.
Yeah, I like the Crawford home run especially, and then Belt, your last Belt bet, Garen, I forgot to mention. All he has to go is 2 for 17 today at Coors Field, and
yeah,
he can get it. And then
Crawford has one too. I considered. I wanted to mention that it's over 1.5 is minus 177. So that's another direction. If you don't want to look at the home run, that's another direction to look.
Yeah, those both make a lot of sense. I'm going to stick to all open bets. I'm going to go $50 on Tiger Woods to actually miss the cut at plus 300. And I don't think he's going to miss the cut in general.
Listen to Eric, how much he hates America. Rooting for ties, rooting against Tiger Woods.
I'm not rooting against Tiger Woods. Well, now I am. If I'm going to have my money on it. But I just think that there's some value on that. Who's going to bet Tiger to miss the cut? Nobody. The public money is all going to be on him to make the cut, to win the tournament. So I think it always makes sense to fade the public. So I'm going to bet $50 on Tiger to miss the cut. Justin Rose, top 5 finishes, plus 550. I'm going to bet $50 on that for Rose to finish in the top 5. I'm going to be a little mad if he winds up winning it because I don't not got no bets on that. But I guess I'd be happy because I won my top 5 bet. My final bet is $400 of my $500. It's going to be on Justin Rose head-to-head against Tiger Woods, plus 100, even money on Justin Rose. I can't believe that's what it is. I think he should be at least minus 200, which seems shocking. Or maybe not minus 200, but at least minus 150 in that range, 150 to 200. I love Justin Rose this week. I hate Tiger Woods this week. matches up perfectly. $400 on Justin Rose, even money to beat Tiger Woods, and I'll be celebrating my win next week here on Between the Lines. Unless I guess Brandon Crawford hits like 3 home runs, I guess it won't matter. But
and then you won't talk about it at all because you lost.
The Royals throw a no-hitter. He gets 17 strikeout no-hitter.
It'd probably be like a 3 strikeout no-hitter, but I'll take it. Just.
But we'll see that. So enjoy the best bets. There's money to be given away. We're going to announce on the Twitter who won the money from last week. Again, on Twitter, @BetweenLinesDK.
Free money.
Do it again this week. What was that, Will?
I said free money.
Free money. Free money alert. So check out the Twitter, BetweenLinesDK, to see who won. If you did, and then enter again this week to get that money. Listen to us again on iTunes, Spotify, everywhere in the world you get your podcast, and then here on YouTube or DK Live. You can watch us. For Garion Thornton and Will Appleby, I'm Eric Rosenthal, and we just went Between the Lines.